I think, folks, as we're getting settled in and it's a few minutes after 7, I think I'd like to invite our Executive Minister, Peter Hartmans, to start us off this evening and welcome you to this place. But as I do, I'm just realizing, so I believe, Peter, should we start by acknowledging our place and where we are together first, and then go into a time of worship? Would that be appropriate?
Sure. So you're going to do the land
Yeah,
acknowledgement?
I will do the land acknowledgement.
Okay.
Right. Well, I'd like to welcome everyone, for no matter where you are, finding yourselves in this virtual space. I'm so grateful to see so many folks here this evening. I want to welcome you here, and I join you tonight from the traditional territory of the Atikameksheng Anishinaabeg, which is also known as Sudbury, Ontario. Now, as we gather, we know that long before my ancestors came here, that there were people in this space. And in fact, if any of you are familiar with Shagwinda on Manitoulin Island, I spent some time there a couple of weeks ago. And it is there that there is records of human settlements that are over 10,000 years old. Let me repeat that for you. 10,000 years old. So when you're in church and you hear a conversation about, long before my people came here, or for thousands of years, I really mean it. For thousands and thousands of years, there have been Indigenous people in this land. And it's important for us to reflect on that the peoples here, Indigenous peoples of this land, received from their elders an understanding of creation and of the mystery that surrounds us all. And it was rich and it was deep and it was treasured. It was treasured and still is treasured by Indigenous communities today. But when those people shared their vision with my ancestors, my people did not hear that. Instead, my people tried to force Indigenous peoples to be more like me because I'm white. And in that understanding, there was a supremacy of white, and it still exists today. My people tried to force Indigenous peoples to be like us, and in so doing, helped to destroy the vision that made Indigenous people blessed and beautiful. And so I have heard moderator Bob Smith speak about in giving his apology in 1986 that what my ancestor did was to twist and damage what made Indigenous people right and beautiful. So now we are in the midst of a long and painful journey as we reflect on the cries that our whole church did not or would not hear. This is the time when we have a moment to reflect on how we have behaved as a church. And this is a difficult road of repentance and reconciliation and healing. And so tonight, as we do is whenever we gather, we share this history, we name the story, we reflect on the place that we are. And in so doing, we have an opportunity to commit ourselves again to work towards ensuring that we will never use our power as a church to hurt others with attitudes of racial or spiritual superiority. I pray that if you are Indigenous and joining us tonight, that you will hear that I am sincere with these words, and that you will witness the living out of our apology in our actions now and in the future. As I mentioned already, I'm joining you from the traditional territory of the Atikameksheng Anishinaabeg, and where we are all treaty peoples of the 1862 Robinson-Huron Treaty. And if you know the traditional territory that you are joining us from, I'd invite you to put that into the chat box. And as you do so, may you reflect as well on your commitments, on how you are working towards ensuring that we walk a path of reconciliation.
Thanks, Melody. I'm Peter Hartmans, Executive Minister for the Canadian Shield Regional Council. My other half job is I serve Shining Waters Regional Council And if you're not familiar with our new names, I think you know who Shining Waters is, which is the churches from just over the border in Quebec all the way to Thunder Bay and everywhere in between in Ontario. But Shining Waters is the area that sort of goes south of North Bay down to Lake Ontario, which includes Toronto. It is a pleasure to be with you all tonight, and thank you for giving us a little over an hour of your time to talk and see each other as a region. Melody, who serves as Minister for Congregational Support in our regional council with a bunch of other jobs too, along with the commission, thought it was really important for us to gather tonight, and I celebrate that with them. And they've asked me to just begin with focusing on God and worship tonight as we gather and see each other. As we all know, we're in the days after Easter, and we celebrate the risen Christ. Reading today from Luke chapter 24, verses 36 and on. While they were talking about this, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." And they were startled and terrified.
I was muted
and thought they were seeing a ghost. And he said to them, "Why are you frightened? Why do you have doubts that arise in your hearts?" The word of God, thanks be to God. It has been a challenging journey in the last couple of years. I can just think 2 years ago in March, meeting with some of you and talking about the impending pandemic, not realizing that it would be 2+ years. I scoffed at anybody who said it would be any longer than a year. I was obviously very wrong. I know I was in denial, and maybe some of you were too. And I know a couple of people that are joining us tonight join us actually suffering from COVID-19 and are sick, but have decided to join with us tonight anyways. I wanted you I wanted to talk about some of the doubt that many of us may have had 2 years ago, wondering what was going to happen next. My brother, the minister, called me terrified about a month into the pandemic, and a normally very calm and gentle person was encouraging me to buy seeds because he was concerned we were going to run out of food in a few months with the pandemic. I know a lot of churches needed to pivot very quickly and minister in different ways. Some of you started ministry of phoning, or ministries of muffin ministries I heard about, of people making muffins and dropping them off at people's houses. A lot of you were doing online worship. A lot of you were doing ministries of newsletters and writing letters the old-fashioned way, and then using all sorts of technologies that you can dream of. As a person who has the privilege to serve Canadian Shield Regional Council, I was amazed at the fortitude and courage and energy and creativity and witness to the gospel that we have seen in the last 2 years. I'm grateful for our leadership, who I know at this point, many are exhausted and tired and worn out and have given it their all. I think in particular of lay leaders in churches and ministry personnel. But also I have been watching from the sidelines our musicians who have been extremely creative. Some of them technologically joining together choirs in amazing ways that I have no idea how they did it, and making music. And the fact that you're here tonight in a new way, which was something we really didn't do 2 years ago, shows the transition of the pandemic. Know that you've been in our prayers. Know that many folks around our churches, in our communities have worked diligently. We have prayed for our leaders in our churches, in our communities, our politicians. But we look back at the scripture today at a message of grace and hope and salvation. The folks around the fire were not so different than us in a very scary time. Jesus had been crucified on the cross. The disciples were terrified. And Jesus came to that fire and he broke bread and ate fish with them and said, "Peace be with you. Peace be with you." Today we come together to see each other, to be with each other, but most of all to celebrate the grace and love of Christ who has been with us in the past 2 years and throughout our whole life. We give thanks for our communities of faith. We give thanks for the witness of Jesus Christ during this pandemic. We give thanks for you, our community, our leadership, our neighbors, our friends. We also mourn for the grief and stress and pain and sorrow that folks have experienced. But in all of that, we remember the words of Jesus Christ, who reminds us and says to us, "Peace be with you." Let us pray together. Greater God, we give thanks for our many communities of faith across Canadian Shield, from Quebec to Thunder Bay and all the places in between. We give thanks for witness, for creativity, for community, for leadership. We pray that your Spirit will be with us tonight, that we'll experience your grace. In Jesus' name, amen.
And I think we're going to hear from the chair of our regional council, Barb Knott, who's joining us this evening.
Thank you, Melody. I just wanted to explain a little bit about the governance of the Canadian Shield. And its structure consists of an executive, which is made up of 12 members from across the Canadian Shield. And on that committee, we have myself, we have a chair-elect, which is Nancy Ferguson. We have our past chair, Kathy Smith, and we have our representatives or the chairs of our commissions, Jim Jackson and John Watson, who you are going to hear from later. We also have representatives of Helen Smith, Joy Galloway, Stuart Walker, David Legrand, Tori Mullen, and a representative from the Indigenous that corresponds with us. So on the executive, we have all of these people who meet monthly and deal with some of the situations that are happening across our region. And besides that, there are resource people. And you're going to hear about these resource teams later in the presentation. But I wanted to do a little bit about our logo, because to me, it's a very special logo. And with it comes our theme of engaging with the Spirit to inspire, connect, and empower communities of faith. And it's a graphic reflection of our theme that we had at our first inaugural meeting of coming together as a region. The cross, though grounded on a rock, capturing our geographic, because we are Canadian Shield, depicts movement and fluidity. Unlike a traditional angular cross, this one illustrates that the cross is reaching the arms outward and upward across our landscape. The white streams of water speak to the movement of creation in our waterways, but also the movement of God's Spirit in life-giving and life-affirming gifts of the water of life. As the sun rises, the rainbow light speaks of a world, a church, a community of faithful who welcome the new day, the new light of new life with inclusivity and acceptance and appreciation for diversity. As we move into the new day of the church, we are indeed moving forward with the Spirit. And I should say that our executive is made up of people from right across our region, from Thunder Bay to Sault Ste. Marie to Timmins to North Bay and Sudbury and all areas in between. So I'm really glad to be here, and I am really looking forward to meeting you all in person when I'm going to remain positive that we are going to have our face-to-face regional meeting in September here in Sudbury. So thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Barb. And you talked about our region, and I wanted to share with folks the actual picture of our region. So if you just give me a moment to get sorted here. And I'm just going to make sure it's lined up. There we go. And I think it's really important to share with folks. I did a little project a little while ago, and I developed a Google map, which means it's a map that I can share a link to. It's a digital map, but I've plotted all of our communities of faith, all our different churches on this map, and I'm going to share it with you now. So I hope folks can see it. And as I mentioned, this is a Google map, and I can make it bigger or smaller, and I can share with you the actual link if you're interested in it. You see on here, there are 96 communities of faith, and there are 3 colors on this map. The 3 colors are blue, red, and green. And they are recording the places in our area, in our region, that have paid accountable ministry staff. So this gives you in this Google map a little bit of a glimpse of the reality of many of our communities of faith. Green is a student placement. So we have some green dots in Sudbury, we have a green dot in Wawa, and a green dot in Thunder Bay. The blue dots reflect those communities of faith that have paid accountable ministry of some sort, any sort. Someone who is there consistently to lead and work within the community. And the red dots are lay-led congregations. Some of them are in transition, and some of them have been lay-led for decades. And these are areas without paid accountable ministry. So you can see this is maybe not what I know that when I went to seminary, we say this, things I did not learn in seminary. I did not learn in seminary that the vast majority of the congregations that I would be in relationship with would not have a minister, would be relying on the skills and gifts of lay leaders. But this is our reality now. And to be honest, the church has always relied on the skills and gifts of our lay leaders. So this is just a clear picture of what's happening. So as Barb mentioned, she shared with you a little bit of the structure of Canadian Shield Regional Council, and it's as simple as possible. So you'll notice that Barb is part of that regional council and executive, and that's made up of people from across the region that meet regularly to vision the important work that we do together. And they are served by our executive minister, Peter Hartmans, and our administrative staff, Sue Whitehead. And then there are 2 commissions that are tasked with the work of the region. Pastoral Relations Commission, which is chaired by John Watson from Thunder Bay, and the Communities of Faith Commission, which is chaired by Jim Jackson from Thunder Bay. And within the work of these 2 commissions, we have resource teams that relate to these commissions. And we're going to talk about that a little bit through the presentation as well. So our shared work together. We live together in covenantal relationship, region and communities of faith. The reason why we exist as a regional council is so that we can help each other, that we serve and provide some oversight, some accountability with each other, that we encourage and engage with one another in ministry and mission, and that we share resources together, whether it's through policy development or sharing finances together. So that's our shared work together. Other areas of shared work include how we prepare for ministry, the pastoral relations work of the region, how we celebrate together milestones in ministry, and how we support each other as paid accountable ministers, and how we participate in the life of the wider denomination, the United Church of Canada. So I'm going to turn things over now to the Chair of Pastoral Relations Commission, John Watson. Hello, John. These are your slides, my friend.
I'm just trying to get my video going. Do I need to do that or?
No, you can just talk.
Okay. Well, the Pastoral Relations Commission, we look after pastoral relations. And what pastoral relations is policy that governs the search, selection, call, and appointment between ministry personnel and communities of faith within our church. And the policy is set by the General Council, but is, for the most part, administered by the region. And commissions are, unlike committees, are decision-making bodies. And commissions make decisions for the regional council. So you'll often be looking at the manual, and it will say regional council has the responsibility, but they may have given that responsibility to a commission. And when the commission makes a decision, it is the same as the regional council making the decision. And that's a distinction that we need to, under the new system, that we need to really understand and realize that it's the commission making a decision on behalf of the region. And the Pastoral Relations Commission has been given 11 areas to look after, and that's covering new ministry relationships. Preparing for ministry is the second responsibility, and that includes celebrating and approving applications for candidacy, ordination and commissioning of members of the Order of Ministry, recognizing designated lay ministers, licensing licensed lay worship leaders, and celebrating admissions and readmissions. And the Pastoral Relations Commission is responsible for cooperating with the Communities of Faith Commission in recruiting, choosing, calling, appointing, and covenanting with ministry personnel and communities of faith. So just as Melody had said, we don't do things in isolation. We do things working together. We're also involved in ending calls, appointments, and covenantings with ministry personnel and other staff. We're involved in celebrating retirements. So at the regional meeting, when there's a celebration of retirements, it is the Pastoral Relations Commission that's responsible for that. We're also responsible for support around congregational designated ministers through the pastoral relations minister. We're responsible for interim ministry, responsible for licensing of the sacraments, or license to administer the sacraments. Appointment and support of intentional interim ministers. Licensing and oversight of the lay worship leaders, and appointment of pastoral charge supervisors. Now, as we're finding more and more, pastoral relations and support to communities faith commission have a lot of crossover areas where we both are involved in dealing with congregations or pastoral churches. But one of the big areas that Pastoral Relations Commission is really concerned with through the liaisons is a commitment to inclusivity and diversity. Just about every church that I've ever seen says that they're welcoming, and they're welcoming to all people. But sometimes when we come around to looking at bringing on new ministers and new staff, we see ourselves a little bit different. And we see ourselves as we're not paying attention to ensuring that the values of diversity are upheld. And we need to make sure that all the pastoral relations processes are granted unbiased and equal access to all persons, regardless of their sexual orientation, gender identities, and expression of race, age, or disability. Like any other employer in the province of Ontario, we're governed by provincial laws that require us to be open and require us to make sure that we're doing that. And it's the Pastoral Relations Commission that when decisions are being made and when we're providing liaisons to you in that search process, that we bring that to your attention, just so that you're always remembering it. One of the things that I remember most about my background being a unionist is at a lot of years ago, we started having a statement, just like we do, we're now doing in the church, where we acknowledge the land and we also acknowledge that it's a safe place. Every time you go through what I'm going to call a ritual, where you go over that and you remind yourself, you begin to live it out better. You begin to understand what those words really mean, because we often say we're welcoming, but we really don't know what that means. And we have to go through that over and over again so that we understand that. And that's one of the major responsibilities of the Pastoral Relations Commission, is to help you see that. Now, the Pastoral Relations Commission kind of seems like that rule body that you have to, we're so used to the old systems of presbytery where there was somebody with oversight and overlooking and making sure you did things right. And in the changes that have happened since 2019, congregations are able to make decisions, but there's still somebody who's making sure you're playing by all the rules. And those rules are set up so that we deal with things fairly and equally, and that we make sure we're not forgetting to do things. And that's why the Pastoral Relations Commission oversees these things, to make sure that we're doing things in the way that we should be doing them. Now, I think Jim Jackson said, this is the dry stuff. And that's where I find myself right now, saying this is real dry. But we're trying to make it a system where there are checks and balances and people available to help you. And this evening is set up so that you get to see some of the faces and understand and get to meet the people that you will be dealing with. Most of the processes we're going through these days aren't about, are you doing things right in a checkbox, much like the toolkit that you're given to deal with your annual reports and a checkoff list. That was for you as a tool to see how you were doing. Are you doing all the things you need to do? As opposed to somebody looking over your shoulder and checking. because our system is now not so much one of checking, but of one of saying, how do we support you and how do you help you as we all grow together? Melody, I'll turn it
Yeah.
back to you.
Thanks. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Jim for our next conversation about the Support to Communities of Faith Commission. So here we go, Jim. And Jim will have to unmute himself.
I got the picture up, but not the voice.
Yeah.
So thank you again. And thanks to John for what you said and for saying some of the things that I'd probably forgotten to say about the commissions and their role and responsibilities relative to decision making. I'm going to do similar things as John has done and talk briefly about the Support to Communities of Faith Commission. Our role is really to be supportive of communities of faith, and we're here to help. I don't know what better way to say that, but as I took on this role, I was recognizing when we put that map together that Melody showed you that there's a big job here, and there's a partnership that needs to happen with the region and each of the communities of faith in a greater or lesser degree. Some of us are pretty self-supportive, self-governing and getting on with it. Some of us are having a need for support and help. So that's what we're here to try and do and offer that kind of support. So we're about recognizing communities of faith and helping them. We are involved with helping to establish covenantal relationships. We've finally done one in this region, I think. We've only done one at this point in time, and I don't think it was a painful exercise for the people that did it at all. So it's something that we'll be talking about more with individuals and getting the word out about it and being supportive in that. We're really here to be with you through the life cycle, from beginning to being active to changing to the end time. And we've recently, along with the property resource team, been through a couple or more, at least two that I can think of off the top, but more than that, where people have decided that they just need to close up shop and move on. And that's always a sad moment for all of us, but we try to do that as pastorally as we possibly can. So let's move on here. We provide support, advice, and services to communities of faith. Sometimes I would use my own community of faith as an example. We tend to think we have to look after things ourselves, and now in the position I'm in, I realize that there are people, committees, offices of the national church that can really provide support. And we provide support for congregational property. We have a property resource team that's under the umbrella of the Communities of Faith Commission. And they have some very able people there that have some expertise that can be called upon, and also know where to go to maybe help you with other things. Managing regional archives, I've been asking that question in the commission just about every meeting. What are we doing about that? And we decide that so far we're not doing very much about it, but it's something that we need to be aware of and be very considerate of. It's important. The congregational leadership training, I know Melody does some of that, and we're certainly available to be involved in that. I don't know that we've been called on very much lately. And providing worship resources for lay-led congregations. We have a United in Learning group that provides that stuff. We have some multi-site connections that we use to help provide that in congregations that need to have that kind of help. We provide resources for collegiality and support resourcing and animating collaborative conversations like cooperative ministries, able to help with amalgamations and disbanding. We also have had some involvement with collaborative ministry, which is something that may be on the horizon that some congregations may want to be considering. And that's something we can talk about, and we know we have animators that can help people work through that. Resource for mission collaboration, I think Melody is the expert in our region on that, and is called on from time to time. And I'm sure all of you have worked through the self-assessment process that was set out probably near year end last year. Some of you found it maybe not very nice to work through, thinking it was a report card. I know several congregations that have worked through that. And it's really a tool that people can use to have a look at their congregation and just see where you are relative to the many questions that are in that assessment. It's a bit of an eye opener, I must admit. We've done it in my congregation as well. And there's a number of things that showed up that we need to be able to do. So I recommend doing that. We really are here to try and build relationships and strengthen relationships with communities of faith so that you can live your mission and ministry. I don't know how better to say that. Melody, I know you're going to do it as well, but I would like to move to that slide that shows all the resource team stuff. I won't steal your thunder, I promise, but I just want to mention here that the resource teams that are related to the support to communities of faith are the Affirming Ministry Resource Team, the Mission Grants Resource Team, Youth and Young Adults Resource Team, Right Relations Resource Team, the Property Resource Team. And there's one that's missing here, I think, which is the SJNOC.
That's a network.
Yes.
Which I did not put on my network slide, but yeah, it's a network.
But they are to some degree involved with,
yes,
with the commission. So
yeah.
Whatever else you want to say, I think I've done my thing and maybe gone a little over on it. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Jim. And so people can see the sort of the scope of the work of the commissions. We have these resource teams are nimble. They work quickly. They respond quickly. They have very focused people serving on these teams. And perhaps you see something, if you haven't found your niche yet within the region, perhaps you might be attracted to serve in any of these areas. These are ad hoc teams that can take on people. There's sometimes a bit of a nominations process, but I know within the youth and young adult resource team, for example, we're just like, if you want to come play in our sandbox, come on in. We'll have some conversation about how we can animate and support youth and young adult life within our region. So as Jim already mentioned, those 5 different resource teams that relate to the Support to Communities of Faith Commission, and maybe Rob, you can speak a little bit about the 3 that relate to the Pastoral Relations Commission.
Right. Thank you, Melody, and thank you all. It's really good to see you all here tonight, and thank you for your service and work. And so I work with 4 of these teams. The licensed lay worship leaders are a group of ministry personnel and licensed lay worship leaders who are responsible for licensing of our lay worship leaders, and also are responsible for providing education and support to our lay leaders. As you look at that map, you realize we have more lay-led congregations than we have ministers. And so how does work get done? How does Sunday morning worship happen in those lay-led congregations? And it's through licensed lay worship leaders. And we are very fortunate also to have Joy and George Bott, who are part of the online training program for licensed lay worship leaders for across the country. And so we are blessed. We are very blessed as a region to have those folks as part of us, and for the licensed lay worship leaders. You know, if we were in a place where we could sort of raise our hands, I'd love to ask the question, how many of you are licensed lay worship leaders? And you would be surprised and so thank you. I'll move quickly. Our ministry personnel support team, part of my mandate is the health, joy, and excellence of our ministry personnel here in the Canadian Shield region. And so I have gathered a few of some of our best ministers to work with me to provide. We've been providing since COVID hit sort of a monthly gathering of a variety of different speakers and gatherings. And just recently we had Abigail Johnson come and talk to us about the how big is our call, the changing vocation of ministers that has been really brought upon us through this time of COVID. And the third group is liaisons, and we've already sort of referred to them. We have 11 excellent people who will work with you in trying to find a new minister, and that's their job, is to sort of train your team to begin the process and get yourself up on the hub, and then start searching for a new minister and do the interviews and all of that. And so we, as I say, that's a great group. And the other group that I have the privilege of serving is the Affirming Ministry Resource Team, led by Peter Haddo. And, you know, we just celebrated our receiving our affirming status as a region. And we have 6 affirming ministries within our region, and we hope to add 5 more before 2025. So I think there's one that's brewing already, and I hope that there's a few else of you out there who are considering becoming an affirming ministry as well. So I think I've spoken enough there, Melody, so if you want to take it away.
Thanks, Rob. I'm not going to speak too long on these, because I think the resource teams that I support are pretty self-explanatory. Mission grants is we are supporting financially the mission of the region. And so when folks are looking for regional financial support, it's to the mission grants resource team that they come. Youth and young adult resource team, which is honestly been challenged throughout the pandemic, but we are looking forward to a camping event in September to come alongside their face-to-face regional events. And I have to tell folks an announcement. It has been confirmed that we will be at Hannah Lake, just outside of Sudbury. I just got that confirmed this week. And we also help to resource youth leaders as well. And so we're planning a youth leader retreat for the first weekend of June. If there's a youth leader in your group that you would like to connect in with us, I would really appreciate hearing from you. A Right Relations Resource Team, which even this afternoon you will have seen your announcement in your inbox of the May Minute for Right Relations, and they work diligently on behalf of the region in promoting, in education, and walking the good path of reconciliation. We've spoken a fair amount about the Property Resource Team, which any of those property transitions, buying, selling, leasing property on behalf of the United Church of Canada, this is a well-honed group of people that know what they're doing, have lots and lots of experience. And finally, I don't particularly support the Finance Resource Team. That belongs to my colleague, Janet McDonald. And the Finance Resource Team is the team that resources the finances of the whole region. So setting budget for the region, looking at, doing the accountability, the reports for the whole region within our council. So We work cooperatively together through networks and clusters, and here I've just named a few of them that are active, maybe perhaps in areas such as worship and supporting worship, and places like Worship United in Worship and Rural Connect. There are education groups that have come together. Manitou Intentional Learning Community, you may have seen announcements and invitations to join in learning events with the Manitou Intentional Learning Community, or even with the North Bay and Area Mission Cluster, which also offers educational opportunities, but also opportunities for advocacy. And one example of churches coming together in partnership are the Greater Sudbury United Churches. We have a Facebook page. I know that other churches like United in the Sioux, Thunder Bay, there's areas where we have come together to share in opportunities. For example, Sault Ste. Marie clergy, not churches, came together to offer a Lenten worship, Lenten study process. Similarly, in Greater Sudbury churches, we've been doing shared children and families programming. And in Thunder Bay and North Bay, there's been shared worship through technology. So these are just some examples of how we come together to share. And there you see Central Algoma Cluster, and this is really that collaborative ministry model that you heard Jim and John talk about. This is a great example of how congregations have come together, not to amalgamate, not to become all the same, but to share in ministry together, where they connect and they say, these are the things that we can share, and maybe it might be worship, maybe it might be pastoral care, maybe it might be service to the community. The region supports mission together, and every time we are together, I want to say thank you for your generous support. And these are some of the areas that your resources helps to forward the ministry of Christ in Canadian Shield. And whether it's through shared ecumenical ministries like Golden Valley Anglican United Church in Val-d'Or, Quebec, or St. Matthew St. Paul's Anglican United Church in Hearst. We support rural and isolated ministries like Goulet River United Church. We support social services such as Daisy Chain Drop-In and our partners in Rainbow Camp. And of course, we support our camps, Camp McDougall and Camp Duncan in Thunder Bay. Now this is Rob's bailiwick.
And one of the exciting things about our region is our willingness to welcome students. And here are a few of our students. We had 6, and one of them is about to be ordained on May 15th in Marathon. So we give thanks for being a place to support Tori in her journey towards ordination. But we also just recognize Di Tate, who's at St. Mark's, David Chipka, who is at St. James in the Valley, and Minyak, who's just joined us, and Wawa. And David Caldwell also has joined us in Thunder Bay at Pine Grove and Pine Grove and Trinity United. And of course, Pam Brown is at Trinity Capril. And so we are very blessed. And then we did have this summer an excellent summer intern program that was basically run partly by my colleague Melody and our colleague Jeffrey Dale in Shining Waters. And so this is an important part of our work as well. And then I think the next slide is also, yes, and I am just so excited. These 3 men, they're missions from different denominations, and we just welcomed James. Most of us know James because he's been part of our region, serving as a Presbyterian in Kapuskasing, but he finally saw the light and has come and is in the admissions process. So we welcome you, James, and excited about having you with us at Lively, Trinity Lively. And Reverend Desire and Reverend Mustard are amazing men that I think are going to transform not only the Thunder Bay churches that they're serving, but our Canadian Shield region, and if we don't watch out, the entire denomination. So I think that's really exciting. And if you're looking for a minister, don't dismiss them because they're from another country, because they will bring a whole batch of energy and vision and a different way of doing things that I think our church needs. But I'm preaching. Sorry about that, Melody. Back to you.
So I'm going to stop the slides, I think, because I think we've had enough slides and staring at screens, and maybe we need to see some faces. So I think our next presenter is Joy Bott. Sorry, no, Marty Mumford. There we go, Marty Mumford and Kathy Smith. So I'm going to stop share so we can see them. And I will mute myself. So Marty is our stalwart. I want to bubble wrap Marty, so nothing is allowed to happen to Marty, because she is super active with our Support to Communities of Faith Commission as a secretary to that commission, but she's also very active with the Pastoral Relations Commission as a liaison. And joining her in this portion of conversation is Kathy Smith, who is our past chair of our regional council. You might recognize her.
Thank you, Melody. Thank you, Lay Regional Council reps. You have been called to the ministry of participating in the decision-making for Canadian Shield Regional Council. As a representative elected by your community of faith to the Canadian Shield, you have been given the responsibility to consider and discern decisions about ministry, mission, and priorities for service and stewardship. A councillor church, we believe that the Spirit of God moves and is discerned within the community of believers. You share in the responsibility for undertaking the work for which the Regional Council has been charged, and in building relationship through access to information between your community and Canadian Shield. Thank you for your experience of life and ministry of your local community of faith. You are the grassroots person who can share about what life is like in the local congregation. You know the challenges and joys of being church. You bring your commitment to share in the witness and ministry of the United Church of Canada. By accepting the role of the lay representative to the Regional Council, you have taken on the mantle of representing the work of the United Church of Canada to your local community of faith. Your job is to communicate, communicate, communicate. You are the primary communication hub between the Regional Council and the community of faith. You need to share emails you receive from the work of the Regional Council widely with your congregation, share written reports about Regional Council work with governing body, write an annual report for the annual report of your community of faith, ensure that there is an electronic copy sent to the region, assist your council, and I mean assist your council, in looking at the self-assessment checklist yearly. It's not a checklist to be done like a report card. It is to inspire conversation. Confirm that the stats from your church have been submitted to Church Hub. You need to report back to your community of faith about any town hall meetings, of any network meetings that you attend, and you need to attend covenanting services as you can for new ministers. Most importantly, you need to help people in your community of faith know who they should talk to in the Regional Council with their questions and concerns and need for information. We have great staff, Susan Whitehead, the office administrator, Janet McDonald, treasurer, she's got money on the brain. Rob Smith is you've met, Melody you've met, and you've met Peter. You are expected to attend the regional meeting for the Canadian Shield. This year, as Barb laid out, we hope to meet in person September 23rd, 24th, and 25th. There are hopes that it might be available on live stream as well, but we would like to meet and get to know you. You need to register for this meeting on the Canadian Shield website when the registration comes up. Don't assume that we know you're coming. We need you to register. You will be expected to read the report package and then vote on the regional budget, policy changes, and other business arising. You are expected to participate in the workshops and attend the Saturday evening memorial service and the Sunday celebration of ministry service. I'm going to now invite, at this time, I'd like to invite Kathy Smith to talk about nominations. She is the chair of nominations and she's got lots of information about opportunities to serve. Kathy.
Thanks, Marty. I appreciate that. Good evening, everyone. So happy to be here with you. And I just have to thank you, each and every one of you, for agreeing to be your community of faith regional representative. I know that list that Marty just read off sounds very daunting, but I used to just sit in the pews. And then I had people pushing me, nudging me to, why don't you join the wider church? Why don't you get out there and see what it's about? And I have always been United Church, baptized, confirmed, raised in the United Church. But it wasn't until I got out to the wider church in Presbytery, then conference, and now here at the Regional Council, where I really feel I've learned and come to love this church for what we do as a church, for our mission work and for our justice work. And so I'm just inviting you, if you'd ever thought of jumping on board and moving just a little bit outside your comfort zone to go to the wider church, now's the time to do it. Things are different and things are changing, and there's some great stuff happening out there. So we really would appreciate you to come out and serve and just give it a little bit of thought. Currently though, right away, we actually are short a few people on executive. So if you love policy and you love process, hey, give me a ring. My email can be found on the website. We actually have a nominations page. I don't know who's going to put that up for me. I think Sue's going to do that for me. Sue, could you share that for a moment? Sue, are you there? There you go. She's going to get us right to that page. You can see all of the commissions, and here it is, the nominations page. So there, on this page, there's a job description for each of the positions within the Regional Council. So I invite you to just have a look at that. Find a place. There might be something that just you're passionate about. It might not be policy and process, but those that are, we'd love to have you. But maybe it's youth. Maybe it's right relations. And so that's great, Sue. Thank you so much for that. So I just have to say from my own personal experience that getting involved in the wider church introduced me to amazing music, to amazing people, and to justice and mission work that is incredible stuff. And I have grown immensely in book studies and being a public witness. So I invite you to check that out, and we'd love for you to join. So I guess I turn it back to Melody.
Well, thank you so much. I love, because I work a lot in congregational stewardship and creating cultures of generosity. I'm really, really grateful that it does start with gratitude, that all of this conversation starts with a big thank you to all of you who are coming tonight and all of you who have put your name forward. And maybe there's just a breath of, I wonder what church could be like or might be like, or what my neighbor down the road is doing. And that's why we're here together, is to explore and to learn and to participate together, which is why I'm going to invite Joy Bott, who is a member of the Pastoral Relations Commission, to share with us about participation.
Hi, everyone. I too am very grateful that all of you are intending to act as representatives for your own churches. My job is to talk a little bit about Church Hub. So I was going to ask questions and do a little quiz, but I'm just going to ask you to raise your hand in place. How many of you have seen your Church Hub page? Oh, good. Some people even found the reactions button. But there are quite a few people without hands up here. If you haven't found your church page, your Church Hub page, it's probably because Church Hub started about 4 years ago now. And we all got a letter saying, sign up, sign up, sign up right away, immediately. And people did it and then promptly forgot about it because they didn't need it. So my challenge to you tomorrow and the next day is to go to your church and say, so what is this thing, the Church Hub? Where is it? Who's got the password so I can take a look and see what we've put up there? Because there should be some really exciting things up there. For instance, you're up there, you should have your living faith story for your community of faith. And that always sets people way back. It sounds like a joint needs assessment thing we did many years ago. But the living faith story, you can almost put it right into that teacup that says, what's the most exciting thing about your community of faith? What do you love the most? Okay, that was a rhetorical question, but that's where you start. And then you look at, well, what are our challenges and what are our opportunities? And what would we really like to do about God's mission in our place, along with what we're already doing about God's mission? And also, how can we share this with all the other congregations, communities of faith in our region? So go to your church, find out if you can, if there is a church page already set up. If not, get busy and get one set up. And you can email me and ask me how to do that if you want. Or you can talk to any of the staff members. I'm sure they'll tell you how to get going with that. Find out what that general password is so that you as the representative can go in there and take a look at it. See what the profiles that are in there are. We were supposed to put up on the Church Hub this year our statistics and our annual reports. And then the National Church was going to take those things and fill in a whole lot of the other pages on the Church Hub. So when you go there, you may be interested to find out just how much is already there. So find out. The trick is to know how to get in there and then to say to your congregations, we should be looking at this every year, but I think this year is a particularly important year to take a look at your living faith story, because I don't think many of our churches are who we said we were 3 years ago. And so there's lots of updating that can be done and it can be fun. But I'm not going to go into a whole lot of that because I'm already 10 minutes over, and it's probably mostly my fault there. So I'll see you hopefully in Sudbury, and we can talk more about this living faith story and the Church Hub and what we might do with it. Melody, back to you.
Oh, thank you. And I'm just going to share my screen again. Share my screen. What? Why can't I? There I go. And there's a sharing screen. And what we're talking about tonight definitely is about encouraging participation and developing relationship. And so we're moving now into breakout groups. And so maybe Rob, you can talk to us about these breakout groups we're going to do.
So what we've done, thank you for all that information. That's exciting. But what we're now going to do is sort of break you up geographically. So in groups, you should almost know each other in these groups, but you might not. And so what we want you to do is we're going to, for the rest of the meeting, probably the next 20 minutes, you'll introduce yourself, where you're from, why did you say yes to being a Canadian Shield representative, and how do you connect? And the other question is, what do you need from the region? But mostly, we want you to get to know each other and see who's out there and get excited about this thing called the Canadian Shield Regional Council of the United Church of Canada. Because I believe You know, COVID is kind of shook us up a little bit, and we are on the threshold of thriving. So let's get to know those folks that we're going to thrive with. Okay, so we've divided you into groups, and you will all magically, our friend Susan will just sort of magically put us all in these geographical locations, and you will have a facilitator who are highly trained. We've been working at it for days. I think Nancy was just roped in 5 seconds before the meeting. So anyways, have some fun and get to know each other.
So whether that's friends from Sudbury and you can see some of your local commissioners, or Sault Ste. Marie, perhaps you met with one of our executive staff members or one of our staff members. So we hope that you have a face that you can connect with, and you know how to find us. And we're just coming to the close of our evening tonight. I will recommend that for those of you who want to go exploring, to navigate your way to the Canadian Shield Regional Council website. It includes all of our staff information, ways to contact us, as well as the members of our executive and the membership of our commissions. We're here to help you. We're here to help each other. And that's why we're so grateful for your involvement tonight. Nancy, you have your hand up.
I do. And I have a question.
Yes.
We had some really good conversation in our breakout group, and I'd like to forward some of the responses to those questions, because I think they'd really be helpful for regional council. Are you wanting that information?
Absolutely. Like if you wrote notes,
okay.
Smarty Pants Nancy, go ahead. Let us know.
Thank you very much.
And if you could share those actually through the Support to Communities of Faith Commission, you can share them with me, or if you have Marty's address, Marty Mumford is our secretary for that group. If there are things that you want to connect with, because these sorts of gatherings, connecting our laity together, strengthening our relationships, really is the work of Support to Communities of Faith Commission. And so we're hosting this tonight. I think Barb's hand is up. Yes.
Yes, I just wanted, I was going to do it at the beginning, and then I thought, no, I think it's more appropriate at the end, because I really want to say thank you to all of you for stepping forward and becoming your representative for your community of faith. Just remember that you are not alone in doing the jobs. You know, when they were talking about all the different things that that the reps should be doing, just remember that it takes more than one person to do it. So don't be afraid to ask for help from other members of your congregation, or from Melody or Rob or Peter or Sue, whoever. But you don't have to do it all yourself. It can be a team effort.
Thanks so much, Barb. And I see that Luella, you've got your hand up.
I just wanted to tell Lois that if she wants to call me tonight when this meeting's over, that's fine.
See, that's perfect. That's why y'all talking to each other. Start sharing phone numbers.
There you go.
Any other questions or comments from that time together? Please, go ahead, Nancy, you got your hand up again.
Oh my God, Lois Cookman. You are the wife of Cliff, who was my grade 8 teacher. I didn't know we were in the same region now.
This is great, and I love it. Okay, Barb, you got your hand up again.
Yeah, I do, because I didn't know this question, but it came from one of the people that were in our group. Adherents, they can be the rep from their communities of faith.
I don't know, Peter. Please help me out on that one. Anybody can be members of teams, by the way. You don't have to be a rep to be a member of those resource teams.
Yep.
So I just want to be clear that you can have an active participation without even being a rep. You can participate in the life of the community, of the regional council, by getting active on a resource team. Peter, do you have a response? Does a regional rep have to be a member I kind of think they do, but maybe I'm wrong because things
I need
change.
to look that one up. I got the manual right here, but
I believe so.
I feel like
don't know
maybe.
whether
for you,
Jim, John-
Nancy. Just hold on. Yeah.
I can say personally that in 2008, that was the case
think
because I had been an Anglican for a while and I'd become the lay rep, and then they discovered that I was in fact not a member. So there was an issue there and I had to become a member quickly.
Yep.
I don't
But
know whether
other
Jim
than the
or
question
John-
is, what is a member? There you go. There's a
But
whole other
anything that
question.
happened that long ago doesn't apply anymore. In 2019, we had this real big change.
Yeah.
One-
So David, while Peter's looking that up, David, you've got your hand up.
That was it.
That was the question.
I
Okay.
have my
Jim
hand
and
up.
John.
And then Jim Jackson, you have your hand up. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that one of the issues that came out of our group was the need for what I would call a telephone directory, that like the old Presbyterian conference ones were, where people could look up members that were involved and be able to be in touch with them. And my reaction in part was that's what we're working on even out of tonight, because we finally made comments, but it would, there might be an issue of privacy. I don't know, just in the day and age we live, but that's something that the group I was in felt would be really appropriate, is to have a published document that obviously would have to be edited probably every year, but something like that so people can contact each other.
Yeah. So Peter has responded, yes, a lay rep does need to be a member of the United Church of Canada. And I think Susan, as our administrative person here, I don't know if you can speak to the how to compile a directory, if there's any kind of permissions that we need folks to think about before we can produce one.
Yeah, that's a
don't-
conversation that we'll have to have as a staff, and it does have to do with permission. So we are compiling a list as we speak, so we'll keep you posted.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. John, you have your hand up.
Yeah, our group was concerned about the composition of the group we particularly were in, because we had Nipigon and Marathon and thought that maybe Manitowaj and Horn-Payne should have been in our group as the next kind of congregations, but we were probably clustered in with the Thunder Bay group was my guess. And it's just the way it broke down.
Yeah, you were clustered in together and then we split them up again. So that's what happened. So that was random, and we'll be more attentive to that in the future. Thank you for raising that, John. David has his hand up again.
It was just a comment when we were the question that was asked was, what do we need and how can we communicate better? And my thought was not so much about the communication, even though that's extremely important, was for new ideas is just to think outside of the box. If you have some kind of crazy, wild idea, throw it out there and see what happens, and maybe something will come of it.
And we've experienced that within some of our little cluster groups, whether it's in North Bay or Sault Ste. Marie or Sudbury or Thunder Bay or any of these areas that we've come together. We talked about the South River cluster, South cluster from North Bay. And that's a place to really try out some of these ideas and how we cooperate together. So keeping an eye on the time and respecting your time and how you've come together, I'm just going to see if there's any other questions or thoughts that people wanted to share as we come to a close this evening. Well, not seeing anything. I'll have to say that Nancy Ferguson's got her hand up again.
I'm just thinking one of the things we talked about in our group was about maybe meeting more often than once a year. Now, financially, that may not be possible, but we could do this.
Yeah.
Because this was a great way to connect.
Okay.
So that's it.
That's a great idea. I really appreciate that. Phyllis, you have your hand up.
Also with the idea that cell phones now, you can't get somebody's name out of a phone book like you used to be. So if we had a book that had, I have a cell phone and people say, I don't know how to get a hold of you. And so now I have, when I do palliative care at the hospital, I give the family a card with my phone number on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing that, Phyllis. And those are strategies for communication, keeping us together, right? We often have emails, but we don't necessarily have telephone numbers. But I will tell you that your staff numbers are all accessible, and you can find us all on the Canadian Shield website. And Sue, did you want to give us the 1-800 number so that people can reach us? Maybe people want to write this down. I don't have it in front of me. That would be smart to have in front of me.
Yep, it's 1-833-236-0281. It'll give you the extensions of the people that you'd like to speak to.
Well, there's also extensions. You can put the extensions in when you call, but if you call that number, you will reach the regional council staff. And the first person you'll get is Sue, and then she will be able to direct you to where you need to be, or you can listen to the options. And I'll let you know that that does go to my cell number. So doesn't matter where I am. I'll be in the car. I'll be making supper. I might pick it up. Anything else? Then I would really love to invite Peter Hartmans to conclude the time together and give thanks for our time together with your prayer.
Friends, we end in gratitude. We are in gratitude for our communities of faith. We're in gratitude for you. Let us pray together. Creator God, we're still in the midst of pandemic. We heard stories in our little group tonight. But we also give thanks that you've walked through with us in this journey. We give thanks for our commissions, our executive, our chair, Barb Knott. We give thanks for our staff, and we give thanks to be able to join together in a new way through technology. We pray that your Spirit challenges us, that we experience your grace in all that we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Sue has put the telephone number for their regional council office in the comments, so you can find it there. And feel free to send us any of the information, any questions, any comments, any ways that we can help support each other, any of your big, good ideas. Let us know how we can help. Thank you all.